Yeah, as you guys are talking, we'll switch over, just like on screen, I'll go check.
Are we ready to go?
No, I think we need, I'm just looking at SharePoint. We should have, oh, there it is. Now it popped up. Oh, that's yesterday's. We should have those folders in day 2.
That's what I was gonna ask. Are we gonna try start focusing on in each folder?
I think that's
Okay.
best for our record keeping purposes.
Do you guys mind if I open the public meeting?
No.
Real quick, okay. Good morning. We are continuing the contract labor negotiations with the Boise Police Union and the city of Boise. My name is Courtney Washburn. I am the chief of staff for the city of Boise.
Todd Hanchett with Stoll Reeves.
Ron Weininger, Chief of Police.
Steve Fon, Treasurer for Union.
Damon Jones, Police Union.
Darren Lee, Negotiator Union.
AJ Gaines, Negotiator Union.
Thank you.
So Darren, I think with the SharePoint, let's do this. We have day 2 in there.
Yeah,
So if you want to start by just moving whatever you want into there, and then I think when we take a break, we can set up the subfolders and we can look at the union side and
understood.
have both
Yeah.
available.
That'll work for us.
Okay, great.
So to make sure we're on the same page, to clarify a little bit where we left off yesterday. We have counters or reply for the counter of contract length and then proposals 6 through essentially 17.
Mhm.
Varied numbers in between, but between those 2 numbers. So we'll start with proposal 6, the union's counter to that. Just let me know if that drops in there.
Paid holiday,
Yes.
yes.
Is the,
Following is it?
yeah, is the
Nothing
new
to do
language?
to-
Oh, I have it. In,
Under union proposal?
no, under day 2. Yeah. There
Thank you.
it is, yeah.
And counter is going to be the italicized red language at the bottom of that.
Okay, and that's the only modification to the current, is that right?
That is the only modification I made, yes. I included the original language of the whole section
Mhm.
for the holidays. And then added that as a sub note that we can reformat later since you indicated how bad our formatting is on the contract. So we can surely figure out what subheading that is.
Great. Okay, I think I understand it. We'll take a look at that and
Okay,
come back to you.
okay, perfect. Proposal 7 for the vacation leave. Oh, okay.
Oh,
Now
now we've got it. Like magic.
So you guys, do you want me to keep putting the counters in this one, or do you want me to drop into union proposals now and start doing the rest?
Okay.
Yeah, whatever's easiest.
Okay.
We can,
Let's just, I'm gonna go into union proposals now, and so 6 and 7 are outside of those.
okay.
The
Okay.
following ones are gonna be inside of union proposals.
So you're linking Use proposal 7 to,
To union's original proposal C for the vacation cap increase, understanding that you guys did table that for economic. So essentially this, we understand this will likely be tabled till then as well.
okay.
Okay, understood.
Proposal 9, we'll be placing that in the new folder. Somebody is working very quickly. Way faster,
Not me.
more effective than I am at this.
Okay, so this one you've made just, I guess, contingent upon an agreement as to a new wage scale.
Yeah, when our base wages get updated, because those numbers that we currently have, 1068 and 1003, those are based on our previous base wages. So we're agreeable to the removed language, and the language itself. It's just those numbers upon being updated. We'll be willing to TA that.
Understood.
Moving to proposals 10 and 12. We're linking those together because we are going to be rejecting both of those.
Can you just remind me what those were?
Proposal 10 was regarding the grievance process, specifically the removal of the hearing officer step. And proposal 12, if I'm not mistaken, is the promotional process.
And did you all have a discussion about how to expedite the grievance process if you didn't like our proposal?
So the process is designed to move a little faster. It's just the fact that it slows down, it's no, not by design that it slows down. It's scheduling usually is the conflict. There is dates set in there. So the reason it goes slow is because of scheduling issues. There's set dates in there for attorneys to get together and work it out and agreement to work it out. So the fact that it gets delayed and slowed is only a human error, if you would. It's only as slow as we want to make it to be because there are deadlines and dates in there, but at the same time, it's.
Well, so I guess, our thinking was that, and I understand what you're saying, that we have deadlines and sort of timeframes built in, schedules being what they are, can cause that to draw out. And so, it seems to us that we can actually speed that up, compress that by taking out a step that, I mean, you tell me, but I don't know that it frequently leads to a resolution at that stage anyway.
Well, I mean, we can give you our list of several reasons, but the reality is that last step of arbitration has occurred one time in the last 20 years. And that's currently going on. So it hasn't always been a problem.
Okay.
We have one arbitration in 20 years. So all the other ones were resolved at either before a hearing officer or at a hearing officer. So.
Okay, well, we'll talk about it some more.
We again
On our side.
believe it's probably a solution to a non-problem. That it is designed to work and it has worked for many years, so.
We can probably talk about it later, but do we have any discussions on how to speed things up within the process? Because I think AJ talked yesterday about how lengthy the process was.
But I mean, I believe the delay you're speaking of is literally when the union needs to get with the city and the city needs to get the union. It's usually a conflict in schedules. That's on both sides, not just the city or not just ours, but typically the delays occur because of humans not having time, really.
But you're okay with it with the way it is?
Yeah, we believe it's not I mean, we're currently obviously in the last year experiencing some of the things that I'm assuming is why you brought it to us, but the reality is in 20 years, we haven't been to arbitration, so. Until we've recently, so in the last 3 years, but other than that, the process has worked relatively the way it's supposed to in a smooth and timely manner.
Okay, well, I understand the response and
Okay.
we'll have further conversations on our side about that.
Moving to proposal 14, which was the wellness incentive plan.
Just adding this at the end.
Yeah, our only concern was that with that sentence being taken out, specifying exactly at what pay rate that the contribution should occur at.
Oh, I see. You've
Yeah.
pulled that sentence from above.
That's
see.
our concern, was that being taken out leaves a little room for vagueness.
Understood.
That's concerning.
Yeah.
And also, to be fair, we did add the composite rate for that to be calculated on for the retiree and not their base rate.
Mhm.
That is a change as well.
Oh, okay. Thank you for pointing that out.
Not trying to sneak anything by you.
Appreciate that. Okay, understood.
Proposal 15. Placing that in there, that is the health reimbursement arrangement. We are agreeable to that proposal.
Okay, so we can TA that one.
Yes.
Thank you.
And proposal 17. The amended shifts proposal. And our counter to the amended shifts proposal.
Counter.
Okay, so the counter is to accept the change from TED to training division and reject the school resource officer units working 5/8.
Correct.
Okay, I understand the counter.
And then I believe our last item is our reply to your counter for contract length. If I'm not mistaken, and the union is going to table that based on the economic implications of a 3-year versus a 4-year for base wages that could occur between those two timelines.
So if I understand correctly, you're just saying it just depends what it looks like.
Yeah, it depends on kind of the forecast. We'll take a closer look at that.
Are you? Well, I want to make sure I understand correctly.
Yep.
You're open to it
Very
in
much.
concept.
Yep, we are not married to a 3-year.
Okay,
I'll say that right out. So essentially for us, it's going to be dependent on what the economic forecast is when we start getting into that.
okay, understood.
One other thing, did we get the,
Yeah, I've got that information and put it
Fantastic.
together and I'll send it over.
I appreciate
shortly.
that. Thank you. I think that is, unless I'm missing something, I think that is all that from us.
Yep, I
so
think
far.
we have responses on everything thus far, so.
Okay.
Is there anything else that you'd like to discuss at the table before we go review that?
No,
Deal? Okay. We'll go work through this and come back to you as soon as we can.
Okay, thank you. Are we still in the same room as last time?
yes, it's my understanding. Fire time,
Okay.
unless for some reason you don't like it or.
I'm okay. I'm okay with being bogus. It's fine with me.
Can we, do a time specified stop for the live stream and then we'll revisit it. It's online. How long do you think?
Well, we've got quite a few of these responses to work through, so I think we'll need at least 30 minutes.
We'll start there.
Okay.
So we'll adjourn for 30 minutes.
Thank you. All right, thanks again for the EA on 15. We were gonna get those printed out so we can
Perfect.
sign them, but we're still working on that and I didn't wanna. We'll do that a little bit later, so we'll get those and have those ready, maybe
Okay.
after lunch, so we can do that. We have some responses for you that I will. Over.
So if you go back, you're gonna have two. They built the new city.
Okay, so these are going
Yeah,
into
so going to
city proposals.
Yep.
Okay, so I moved in our response on 6 on paid holidays. I think we're heading in the same direction. We wanted to just modify the wording a little bit. So what we did is we added on the calendar date that the holiday occurs in the lead-in instead of making it a trailing sentence. We think that sets the stage clearly enough for that concept. We don't really think examples are necessary, and so didn't want to clutter it with that. And so we think this solves the issue. I think we're all talking about the same thing. And so we'd like you to take a look at that.
Ensuring that the day is respected on the date it occurs.
That date it occurs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the intent of that language.
Okay.
If there's anything else on that, I'll move to the next one we have for you.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so we have a response on the grievance proposal. We understand, we appreciate the conversation, appreciate that, I think when we spoke yesterday, we were in agreement that the process it takes too long. And we, I think, shared an interest in trying to streamline that. We heard you that the arbitration process only comes into play once now in 20 years. And so then that says to us, well, if we're going to streamline this, then let's just have the hearing officer decide and everybody moves on. So the language that we have proposed there would strike the arbitration provision and would make the hearing officer the final decision maker as it relates to grievances that are brought forward.
Okay. Is that the only language change?
That is
Striking the arbitration and placing the hearing officer as final and binding?
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I've noted in bold the additions. I think the pagination got a little screwed up when I did that.
I'm seeing it though.
And strike through are the changes.
Okay. Okay.
And I did that kind of on the fly. So if there's a trickle down effect of that change, sometimes there's section references, things like that. I didn't fly spec that.
I am not an expert when it comes to formatting of contracts, and so you're the expert. I see the changes that you've made.
Yeah.
I think we're good on our side.
We have a counter on 14. Which just moved in. And the counter, we've rejected the union's proposed language. We removed the strike through on the language above. So we would retain the language that says the cash value of such contribution will be calculated on the basis of the member's rate of pay at time of retirement. And that's our proposal. And whether you want that to go before or after, I don't care about the order necessarily, but
I don't think the order necessarily changes anything drastically. Okay. I think for us, that solves our main concern on that proposal.
Okay.
So the union would actually be open to TA that one.
okay, thank you.
As long as the understanding of the set pay rate at the time of
Mhm.
contribution.
Yes, we're on the same page.
Perfect.
Okay, so we'll TA that one.
Proposal 14.
So we'll prepare that one along with the others. And that's what we have for you right now. I will say that, we have some other proposals that you have stated, at least across the table, that you have rejected. We still are looking for consideration on those or responses. So we'd ask you to take a look at those at the time that you're also reviewing what we've just come back with in terms of counters on 6 and 10. We'd appreciate that. Some further consideration on those. I think there are certainly some of those that I think there's still a few out there that shouldn't present significant issues, and we should be able to get there on. There are some that are more significant, and there are some that we do feel pretty strongly about, but we can have some further discussions on that.
Okay. And then the other, excuse me, the other pending counters, we're just gonna hold those due to the economic value of them. We're gonna let
Right.
that carry over into economic.
Yeah, so I have 7 and 9
Yeah.
that you had responses on, but are
Kind of
tabled sort of
contingent on-
dependent upon where else we go later.
Okay.
So I think we're on the same page there, that those will just set aside until we get to the economics. And
Okay.
those will be part of that discussion, but I think they come along pretty quickly and pretty easily once we make headway on the main economic items.
Okay. Did you guys have a response for proposal 17? The working first shift changes?
We don't at this time.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't at this time, but let's see here.
I think that's one of the ones we were.
Yeah, we're still
Or,
we're still in
Consideration.
discussion on that one.
Okay. That is the kind of training division SRO. Okay. Which one?
Yeah, so that one is, that one's still. We still owe you a response.
Okay.
To the counter.
Understood.
And I don't know if you have had a chance to check your email. I sent you an email with the response to the information that the union requested yesterday.
Okay,
So you should have that in your inbox.
just got that. Perfect. Appreciate that. Preferences. Do you, is it your guys' intention to solve all non-economic items before we even reach into economic? Thoughts on that?
I think that would be best.
Okay,
Yeah,
So to
I
make
think
sure we follow
procedurally, it would be best if we got those all cleared up
Okay.
before we moved on.
Okay. Okay. So based on that, then we probably have to take a break and talk about these three, and then we will reconvene and get back with you guys. I can't see this taking too long though, with only three.
Okay,
Todd, could you clarify for me, just so I'm aware, what out of our rejections, what would you like some more discussion on?
well, all of them, frankly,
Okay.
like I said, I think and I don't have them all in front of me at the moment, but I do intend on our next break to kind of go back and look at those. I do think there are some in there, I'm operating from memory, but I think there's a few that probably aren't that controversial, but I need to look at it, so I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I also want to review it because there are some in there that I do want to have, I think we need to have further discussion about, some that are going to be important to the city and to the department. So we'll come back and
Well, if you have questions on them, we're happy to answer.
Yeah.
So whatever questions y'all have on them, we can be prepared at after the break to answer those questions.
yeah, I think it's probably less about questions, because what we have back is just a flat rejection. And so it's probably things that require more of a conversation. So we can, figure out a path through those.
And you don't know specifically which ones that you guys are.
That's what I want to come back and I need to, in the last break, I was focused on making sure we got responses to the things that you just brought to us so we can both keep working at the same time. And I think this allows us to do that. So I want to get that to you. It's just, I'm not prepared to tell you sort of which those are right now. I need to organize those and get that straight.
Fair enough. Okay.
How much time do you think you need?
I think we'll start at 30.
Okay.
And then we'll let you know if we need to extend. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. So the union is sending our counter for the holidays for proposal 6. It'll be titled Proposal 6 Paid Holidays Union Counter. What we essentially did was we took your language, it was much more concise. And we just simply added the word actual before calendar.
Not seeing it either.
There's.
Did I put it in the wrong?
The top one.
This one?
There. Yep.
Is in K2.
Yep. It's we've got it.
Okay.
The title gets cut off. And so
Oh, yes,
we only see the first part.
yes.
We can resize that. Okay, so the counter is to add the word actual.
Just the word actual before calendar. I thought your language is more concise. So we decided to stick with it and just add the word actual.
About that.
Works for me.
Yes.
Fine.
Okay, we can TA that.
Okay.
Look at this, moving in the right direction.
Careful,
Thank you.
don't get ahead of yourself.
Everyone down is another.
Hey, you guys just teed in one. We'll take this away. And it's been a little slow.
I think that's the first one.
Yeah. Celebrate.
Okay.
Do a cartwheel.
Oh my. Celebratory mints for all. And then in regards to, based on, we TA'd. We TA'd 14, so just the grievance proposal 10. Yeah, the union, we're rejecting that new proposal counter for proposal 10.
Which proposal is that?
That is the grievance process. So the removal of arbitration, which and having the hearing officer just being binding and final.
And why is that?
Well, it's in both of our benefits to have an appeal process. So it takes away a step for both of us. Yeah, both the city and the union lose if we do that.
But what do you lose?
It's only been used once in 20 years.
Right, which would have been my second sentence. You're taking away an option of appeal,
Right, but what do you lose?
an appeal option.
Right, and what's the value to relitigating an issue? Why not just get it decided and move on?
What does the city gain?
It's just a pure timing issue. We don't, like, why spend all the time to go through a hearing with a hearing officer and then go through the issue again with an arbitrator? It just doesn't make a lot of sense. There are steps prior to that, just to be, sorry,
You're fine.
step on you. There are steps prior to that where we work together to try to work it out. And so typically you try to work it out. You know, you have a couple of opportunities to do that. And then if you can't, let's just hand it to somebody to tell us what the answer is, rather than have us hand it to somebody else to tell us what they think the answer is, and then have to ask somebody else what the real answer is. That's how I'm looking at it.
And I would just say, how many times have you been in my office in the last year and a half saying, we gotta do something about, like, we gotta speed this up. These grievances are taking forever. We need to move in. We got guys sitting, waiting for an answer. And I mean, AJ said yesterday, the grievance process is way too cumbersome and slow. We're just trying to make an effort to reduce that process's time frame. In response to multiple complaints from the union to me personally that this isn't working. It's hard on our members. So that's why we made the proposal. Hey, let's strike this part. Said no. We said, okay. In response to, we've only used the arbitration once in 20 years. Let's strike that. Let's make a decision be a decision and move on. I think we're just responding to problems presented to me over the last year and a half, telling me multiple times, right? How many times you've been
Well,
in my office
I've
saying,
been in your office many times about discipline taking forever on as far as grievances. I don't know if we've had that many to say I've been in there that many times, but I will say it is a long process. But just to reiterate what I said before, if you read through it now, you've seen there's timelines. There's a 10-day, there's another 10-day, there's a 32, 39-day to file a grievance. There's timeframes in there that if we were to follow both sides, our attorneys, finding a hearing officer, that these timeframes are designed to speed the process up. The fact that both parties, attorneys usually, are mutually agreeing to extend it or wait on the hearing officer or wait for a document, that is not a broken process. That is broken people not following the process. The timelines are pretty cut and dry and they're pretty good. We just don't follow them. And if we followed them, both sides, our attorneys need to be reminded too on occasion. City attorneys need to be reminded, hearing officers, they have schedules too. We have to find them.
we've been like almost 3 years on this arbitration one. That's the only one that's pending in the last 20 years, I guess. Like,
I agree. And all I would reiterate is you can blame, we both can take blame for the delay on these. But the process itself has worked and it will work even better with what you're saying if we actually stick to the timelines, which we're committed to sticking to. Because we do agree that they take too long.
Just to clarify your point, Chief, about my comments the other day, were in reference to a termination and based on clear and convincing evidence, because we're specifically talking about an officer who's now terminated in that case, which was my argument for that clear and convincing, we're terminating an officer on 51%. And then, yes, when you are out of work, that is a long time to be out of work. Now, most of our cases, most of our grievances don't rise to that level because we hire good people. But in the off chances they do, that goes back to the clear and convincing argument. Most of them don't include termination. They include maybe contract or policy or discipline, not including termination. So obviously those people are still employed.
Okay. So I'm to understand the union is A-OK grievance process the way it is. You don't want to make any changes.
No, no, the changes we wanted to make last contract were just to help both sides, which were extending the 32-day period to a 39-day period, which allowed both sides to prepare the documents for a grievance if we get to that level. Other than that, I believe that there's room to work on holding our people to the standard of what the contract says as far as the days. But as far as the way it's written, I believe it's designed, it's worked well for 20 years. And obviously you're describing a rough patch that's been going on for 2 years. And I don't believe we've always had these rough patches.
And to keep in mind what Damon's saying too, and he referenced, we are dealing with attorneys, we're dealing with dockets, court scheduling. Some of these things are not done purposely and they're agreed to by both parties to get through that process. Because of scheduling, hey, we agree, we need to kick this out, whether it's discovery, all these documents that are necessary. And then, of course, the hearing officer has his own trial calendar. So some of the timelines, agree to be waived at sometimes based on people's schedule.
Right, and I'll tell you, it's inevitable that those schedules, so you can have all the timelines in there that you want, but they are going to slide based on people's calendars. That's just the way things are. And so that's going to be the way it is, even if you have just the hearing officer provision and no arbitration, or vice versa. And so the reason why we're making these proposals like we are is that is the only way to shorten this and get control over how long this process can go on. Because, if I'm handling an arbitration, I've got other things to do. The arbitrator has other things to do. The hearings officer, to your point, AJ, everybody has a calendar that we have to navigate. And so the proposal, the concept behind the proposal is to remove one set of those delays that we face just to reach resolution. I mean, the point of the grievance process is to resolve timely things on which we cannot agree.
And I would say 95% of those we do. So I think
Right, which is great.
Which I think it's working. And,
Great.
and the 5% of the time, I believe there's some things that we can hold ourselves to a better standard on the timelines if that's what we can do with schedules.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I think once you get to the hearings officer stage and the arbitration stage, that's out of the party's control. You can't tell your attorney, you must arbitrate this by this date if your attorney is in another arbitration.
100% agree. That's kind of what we discussed. You can't control the schedules, and I believe that's why there's a layoff.
Right.
That's why we try not to get there very much. Usually work it out.
Yeah, which is good. But for the few that don't, it would be good to
Right.
have timely resolution to
Right.
issues.
And then just to reiterate what I'd already said, you're taking away an appeal process for both. And an appeal process is nice to have if the idea has already been brought up of a termination. If an employee is terminated and it doesn't go in their favor, to have another option to try to get your job back is a good thing on our side of things. Now, we haven't had one of those. I can't give you an example. But I'm saying that would be one of serious nature where if I'm an officer that loses my job and I believe I have a case, I would want to have every appeal I could just to get my job back.
Okay.
Okay, well. Guess we'll
Guess we.
table that for
we
now.
Understand your reasoning behind it. Hopefully you understand the reasoning behind us making the proposals and
Yeah.
trying to remove what, I guess what we feel is a relatively unnecessary step. If it's one that's been used once in 20 years and it's not anything to do with a significant matter like termination. I just don't see how that warrants.
Yeah, well, and don't lock me in. That was the example I used. There's other
Yeah.
significant things that can go on that don't rise to the level of termination.
Well, so, yeah, I mean, let's just talk about that a little bit, and I'm just trying to explore this. Are there circumstances where this longer process is more appropriate? Types of issues where this longer process is more appropriate? And I don't have any proposal in mind, I'm just,
Yeah.
you said something that got me thinking about, could there be a difference between some issues that don't require this full?
And those are the
Multi-step
ones that,
process.
those are the ones that Chief and I were speaking about that we usually work out.
Sure, I understand that
Low lying
usually
fruit,
you
let's
do.
just about low lying fruit.
Yeah, I understand that usually you do, but it doesn't mean you always would. And so is there a difference from the union standpoint? Are there some issues that would be that would make sense to have a shorter process for?
Well, no, because we believe our process is already designed to weed those out before we even get to that level. So ones of that nature would only be significant because we usually weed out the other ones through the process.
Table that for now. Appreciate the discussion. We have a number of other open items that, sorry.
Do we want to talk about number 12 in a similar fashion? What the reasoning behind proposal 12 promotional
Yeah,
process?
we can go to that one.
Since that's up next on the list, at least on my list.
Okay.
Can you give a similar explanation as to why you would reject the proposals to change the promotional process?
What questions do you have?
Yeah.
We're happy to answer any questions.
The question is, why did you reject it? What's wrong with it?
What's wrong with it the way it is now?
Yeah,
Yeah,
what's wrong with the proposal?
but his question is, what's wrong with the civil service rules in there, the promotional process the way it is now?
Well, that's the question that he just posed. Our question was, you rejected our proposal.
Right,
Tell us why.
okay.
We never got an answer to why you want to change it.
Yeah, why, I guess that's our
So
question.
typically we give you a proposal, we say this is what our thoughts are, why we would like to change.
Right, we presented it, explained it,
We can
and you said no.
give you a further explanation if you need it.
That's
Sure.
great.
Is that what you need?
Yes.
So the reason for the proposal, we'll just start with the promotional process. Promotional testing shall occur on an as-needed basis as determined by the chief of police. The duration of the eligibility list will be specified with the announcement. That's current language. Any officer who has successfully completed the probationary period, who has prior supervisory experience with another law enforcement agency, is eligible to test for sergeant. So our desire is to get the best and most qualified people into supervisory and leadership positions. If somebody has vast experience somewhere else with that, we feel like they should be eligible to compete with all other Boise police officers for promotion. So in other words, we believe as long as they have completed probation and are secure in their employment here, then they should be able to compete with every other officer for promotion to the rank of sergeant. It's in our best interest to promote the folks who can do the job and have the experience that has a proven track record of that. And so that's why we propose to change the promotional process. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So what-
I struggle with I mean, when you say proven track record, it's like, how do we know their proven track record? You know what I mean? That's kind of tough to say if
I
when they're
guess
coming from.
by their performance in the promotional process. There's a written test, there is an oral board interview, there are assessments, all of the things that you've been through, as you were promoted to sergeant. That's a competitive process. And we feel that process is fair and it's competitive and it evaluates people's skills and abilities. And if they have the ability to do better in that process, why are they prevented from applying for promotion simply because they haven't been here as long as somebody else in the organization? So that's the rationale for the change proposal. And I guess I would be interested in hearing why you would object to that, or what fallacy there is in that rationale.
Well, I guess I can speak to that. I think it takes more than a year to get to know someone. And simply being off probation is not long enough for us to get to know an officer or how they operate. Notice, I'm sure we got some great members who were supervisors in other places. But that 4 years gives us a time to see how that officer, wherever he may be from, operates as a Boise police officer in how we police in Boise, not how he policed wherever he was from. It's going to take him more than a year to get up to speed on, he knows the basics of Idaho code and some of the way our procedures, how we do things here. It's going to take more than a year. And we feel like 4 years is adequate for us to get to know an officer before they put in for that sergeant promotion. Now, I'm sure after that 4 years that they're comfortable here at Boise, we know them, the officers know them. Because what you're describing is we bring a person in, they've been here a year, they're a stranger to most at a year, depending on what shift you work. We might not know them. Okay. On the other hand, we have had laterals who have not been successful at our department, and they've either gone back to a prior agency or gone on to other ventures.
Generally within that probationary period.
Yes. However, and I can also, this can also speak to the corporal aspect of it. The union members have no interest in going into a corporal program. We have an AFC program that is more than adequate pipeline for sergeants. Their training, most of, I believe, our current AFCs are also on the current sergeant's promotional list and will be promoting, and we feel like that has been completely successful. We have a great group of sergeants. To speak to that point. To speak to the lieutenant's point, just striking that whole paragraph out about the testing process. We did this last negotiations. We went through the entire civil service rules. That is a huge benefit to our membership, our sergeants who are testing for lieutenants, and maybe some of our 6-year officers who are also testing for lieutenants. By taking that provision out of the contract, we're basically allowing the city or chief to come in and place a bunch of strangers who nobody knows as lieutenants, who didn't come up in the agency, weren't formerly Idaho police officers or at least Boise police officers. Don't know how we police here. So we're pretty vehemently opposed to striking out that testing process. It would give the ability of the city just to appoint whoever they want without a promotional process or without a testing process. Now, you could argue that that would all go in policy, but as we've said before, the union really ultimately doesn't have the final say in policy. So we're opposed to that as well.
Can I just ask a follow-up question?
Sure.
AJ, you mentioned not having a chance to get to know people several times. Do you feel the promotional process is deficient in finding the information we need to know about people? Like I don't know what a year would not be enough time to get to know someone versus how they performed in the evaluation process. Like I'm trying to understand,
So
don't know people
Right.
aspect.
we're talking about, you're talking about management getting to know them. I'm talking about the officers they serve with getting to know them. You have a different level of trust, you know, whether you're working on the street, whether you're working in detectives, whether you're working in training. We're talking about, when I say get to know you, I mean as a whole, as the department, not just the city and testing process. Just because I can perform well on exam or I have some great resume doesn't mean I'm gonna be a great Boise, Idaho police officer.
So what do you look for in your mind that makes a great Boise police officer? Like, what am I missing in this space? So if you need more than a year to get to know someone, what is it you are looking for?
Investment. It shows investment in the city, in the agency,
And what does that look like?
4 years.
So 4 years shows what investment? Like I'm really trying to understand how in 1 year with a successful evaluation process, we would not be able to determine if enough be promoted, and what's the magic of 4 years?
It gives them an opportunity to get to know other police officers, get to know their peers, get to know their superiors, and vice versa.
So that's in addition to the getting to know the folks in the training cadre, right, through the academy. They go through an FTO program where they are evaluated, instructed, and trained, and there's somewhere around 30-ish FTOs that meet bi-weekly and discuss their performance as they go through the process. And then they have, after they complete the academy and the FTO program, and then they go into the real world, I guess, where they're interacting with people on different shifts, and they are evaluated by their supervisor in an extensive evaluation form on a monthly basis while they continue on probation for 6 months after all of that other training process. That's the part you're saying that doesn't really give us a flavor of who they are until they've been here for an additional 3 years past that point.
Correct.
Is that correct? Should we be extending the probationary period to 4 years?
Why the change now? Because you're saying we have qualified people that can put in? Like, you've been with this agency for 30 years. We've never not had this 4-year thing. Matter of fact, we used to even extend it to, you can't even put in for a specialty position until you've been here 3 years, working the road, getting to know your people, establishing a work ethic before you could even be a detective, before you could even be an SRO. So now I guess I'm trying to understand what's the urgency? Is there someone you want to promote, or why are we concerned with this? Because these are cultural things that have gone on for your whole career. I don't understand where this comes from.
Correct. Things have gone on for a long time, and we are certainly committed to not just doing things because that's the way we've always done them. We want to do them in a measured, evaluative approach, and we are trying to recruit the best and brightest to the Boise Police Department, and we want everyone to have equal opportunities, whether it be specialties or promotional opportunities. We feel that the skill base and the ability to do the job should be the most important thing, not just taking up time in a seat or doing your time before you can apply for other positions. I just think it's the best process to evaluate and identify those who are right for positions, whether those are specialty positions or promotional positions.
And I guess our stance is that time in the seat is important. That time that you're talking about in the seat, that time frame of the 4 years that we lowered from 6 is important for this process in our culture.
And I guess I would also point out that sergeants are subject to a 1-year probationary period. So if the year and a half-ish that somebody's generally on probation, say they are become eligible and they apply and they go through the process, and another year or so usually takes place before they get promoted, but somewhere in that time frame, then they have an additional year of being on probation. If they don't work out or they're not what we're looking for in a supervisor, we can absolutely remove them from that position and send them back to get more time and experience if we need to. The only reason we're bringing it forward now is this is negotiations and this is the time to talk about these things. So we feel like that all of that combined, everything we've talked about is the reason for the proposal. We feel like it's.
And I'll just add that our sergeants lists are never, I mean, we don't have issues with sergeants trying to promote. Our lists expire, our people retest. Our lists are never diluted to zero. They're always maintained. We have many people that have passed the 4-year time frame that is currently set at that test, and we refer to it as die on the list, and then they retest. So we're not in a position where we're lacking applicants for the sergeant position as other positions in the department. We have seen those things.
And I think we've had laterals who are sergeants now who lateraled from someplace else and completely happy. We haven't had, well, I don't think we've had a sergeant not make it off probation since we instituted that policy.
I would agree, and that shows that our promotional process is working, that we are identifying good people to perform in those positions, and I guess we feel it's appropriate to open that to more people to compete and find the best. Not saying we don't have good sergeants, right?
And we just say that it's working. It's already working fine. We've lowered it already. It's working well.
Would you feel that an officer with 4 years at BP, whether experience would be a better supervisor than somebody who's been here, say 2 years or 3 years, that's been a sergeant with another agency for several years and has considerable experience in the supervisory realm as well as the police realm from either another agency in Idaho or another agency outside of the state? I mean, here 4 years make them a better candidate?
No, it's just the rule that we've followed. So
I guess I would
So
say
we can't-
maybe,
yeah, you
Maybe.
do hypothetical.
Maybe.
yeah, it's a hypothetical.
But how do you compare, how do you test, and how do you identify who's going to be the best if you don't give them an opportunity to compete in the process?
They
How
have
do-
an
how
opportunity
do we-
after 4 years.
Right, but how do we ensure we're getting the best candidates for promotion if we can't evaluate these folks because they haven't been here 4 years, but we can evaluate these folks who have been?
It's a hypothetical argument that we can't make. Like, especially when we're talking about a process that we believe is working. And you said was working. And we have good sergeants and we have good people that die on the list that are candidates.
And that person will eventually get there if that's what they want to do. It'll just make them that much better.
Okay, once again, I guess I understand where the rationale is. I disagree with it.
I actually don't know that I understand it. 4 years just seems like it's kind of out of thin air. And the only explanation that I've heard for it is because that's what the contract says, and we've already lowered it from 6. So I don't understand. I've not heard a stated rationale for why 4 is the number. Why is 4 better than 3? Why is 4 better than 5?
We've given you our opinion on that and our answer.
Which was what, just because it says 4?
You know, because of all the things that Vin's talked about as far as our culture, establishing yourself, establishing as a reputation, establishing that we don't, it's currently working just fine. We don't have a list or no one to put in. Now, if this argument was being made because we don't have people putting in for sergeant that have been here for 4 years, and we're at a kind of a desperate time, then this would make perfect sense. But that's not, we have a system that's not broken, that's working. And we provided all the reasons why we believe 4 years is a number that we lowered from 6. Yeah,
That would be one rationale for it. I agree if we didn't have enough candidates. But I think the piece that that ignores is the fact that there are others who would be potentially well or better qualified that the department would benefit from being able to promote. Because 4, I don't think is a magic number. The points that AJ made, I hear him, I understand what he's saying, getting to know somebody. But what I haven't heard is why it takes 4 years to get to know that person.
I don't know how to describe it anymore. 4 years is a time to establish yourself, establish your work ethic. You applied to be a police officer. You are a police officer until you're eligible to put in for something else or promote to sergeant. It's a pretty standard thing across the country.
Okay,
There's eligibility to put in for. Before you're eligible to put in for something, you need to meet certain criteria. It's pretty common.
and does anybody use 3 years for that?
Probably. Maybe they use 6. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I'm just speaking for it's a common practice in law enforcement.
Right. Well, common that there's a time frame.
Time frame to get to know someone, whatever that time frame is, you're right. It could be whatever that's been established. We've established 4 years. It's not broken. It's working.
I think it creates a situation where, I mean, yes, just because 4 seems fine and you're not running against shortages is one thing, but you don't know what you're potentially missing out on making it 4 instead of, say, for example, 3. And just to be clear, the proposal is not 3.
That's okay.
Right.
I was gonna.
But I think the point is there's 4 is not a magic number. And so the process, I think it's important to be thinking about the process. But 4 is somewhat arbitrary from my standpoint.
We would certainly be interested in hearing any counter proposal that you might have as opposed to just a rejection of the proposal outright, but we can leave that for the next item on the list.
Is there any,
Can I just ask this question real quick, just to come back to what we were just talking about? You currently have a chief of police. You put 10 years of leadership experience on that. Correct?
I would have to.
Why 10? Why not 8? I mean, I'm just making the point that 4, you're right, it's an arbitrary number, but we've come from 6 and went to 4. We're dealing with a system that's not broken. These numbers are put out there for those reasons. Like someone decided that that's a level of experience that we wanted in a supervisor to do that. Well,
But
we've
it's
established.
It's not-
tied to any specific police department. It doesn't say 10 years would be PD. It doesn't say 10 years.
Right.
It's the amount of time we're looking for to develop the skill set. So what the chief was saying was, if someone has that experience from another agency versus just spending time in BPD for 4 years, I, as a professional manager, would not equate doing a job for 4 years versus building the skills in order to make this person the best sergeant. So that would be the difference in my mind.
So, Todd, maybe,
But I don't know if it says 10, I don't know what it says.
maybe you're not aware. Like our culture here, we feel like 4 years is good to get assimilated to our culture. We have people coming from other agencies. If you're not aware, we have upwards of a 90% approval rating from the community, probably due to our culture and the way we police here in Boise. And that 4 years, it gives someone time to acclimate to that and how we do things here. And also, as well as the things I stated before, we got to get to know them as a whole group, not just from the management side.
So what is the assimilation process, or what is this culture you're referring to? I guess that's what still remains a bit of a
Okay.
mystery.
The way Boise police officers interact with our citizenry is much different than someone may act,
From another agency.
from another agency, the way they, contacted their citizenry. The types of calls that we take and, are very happy to answer people's questions, which, other agencies don't take the types of calls on our call list that we do. The way we communicate with our citizenry is important. And it will take an officer who's not used to that time to assimilate to that. We believe that 4 years is a good time frame.
Hey, Jaden, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna kind of add on top of that. When a newer officer gets off probation, we have a druthering process that's based on seniority. So these new officers, frankly, they just sit on night shift because that's the least desirable team. I've worked nights for almost 8 years now. And so in that realm, you're only interacting with a certain number of officers anyway. And so I think part of this rapport or assimilation, I think, are the words that are kind of being thrown around right now. Understanding culture. It's just going to take time. Going to block trainings, running into other people from other shifts. There are still, and I don't know if this is a good thing to admit or not, there are still folks that I'm meeting for the first time because either they're working SROs at schools or up at the airport I've never interacted with. But even 6-7 years into this job, I'm meeting them for the first time because we happen to be at the same training together. And so if you have somebody who is new at our department, but yet has leadership supervisor experience at a different department, again, they're only going to be working and rubbing shoulders with a certain amount of people for that amount of time. So again, the words that have been used on our side, rapport, culture, understanding, assimilation, respect, leadership, through those years and those times, that feeling is going to grow because they're just simply going to rub shoulders with more people.
Can I just ask one quick follow-up? So you don't see a solution to that issue through the druthering process? If there was an opportunity to have more movement among officers and not put all the new folks on night shift, you don't see that as the potential solution to the getting to know someone?
No, I think we have our druthering process is based on seniority. I understand that, yep, they might be sitting on nights. It's not necessarily the case, but for the large part of it, yeah, they work night shift for a while. We have experienced officers that decide to work night shift, and so there is a blending there, but teams work teams and not a lot of shoulders get rubbed.
Last time we were at the table 2 years ago, we cut these promotional process pretty significantly. And we feel like they're more than adequate the way they are, and we're not interested in making any changes to them at this time.
Let me ask a follow-up question, I think, to a couple questions ago, regarding somebody coming in, the culture, assimilating, getting to know the BPD way of doing things and how we interact with citizenry and so forth. So this is a what if question, but what if somebody comes from another agency and they come in and they perform adequately to get through the training program, the FTO program, they get off probation, but they really don't buy into this culture and they just continue to do things the way they did wherever they came from. But they do it for 4 years and they get by and they don't really embrace that culture. What happens then that makes them eligible to promote. Like everybody knows them better and everybody thinks that guy or that gal is all screwed up. But now they can apply for promotion, go through the process, and if they test well, we're gonna promote them.
Well,
Well, there's
that's gonna
procedures
be,
there too, though. You have
that's-
discretion.
that's gonna be up to you, that's gonna be up to the chief as well. I would submit to you on that hypothetical that if that person is doing the things they're doing, they're not going to be successful at BPD. Yeah, they may skin that line. However, their peer evaluations are going to reflect.
Yeah.
And whoever the chief of police is going to see those, and there's a probationary process, like you said, and I would submit if you were forced in a situation that you didn't have just cause through the passing over of that promotion for that third or fourth time, whatever it is in there, then that person definitely wouldn't be successful on their probationary process. If they, even if they were successful in the testing process. But just to restate, we feel the promotional process as it is are more than adequate and we're not interested in changing.
And moving from the sergeant to the lieutenant position, what,
That's the whole promotional process. That's our membership that is putting in for those positions that we feel needs protected. So like I said, we feel they're more than adequate. We're not interested in changing.
well, I can say the city is very interested in changing the promotional process, particularly the lieutenant promotional process where that's governed by the civil service rules of the past, but we definitely would ask for some more consideration on that because that is certainly a priority for us to be able to.
Can you give some of the why on that? Because I know we literally just did this 2 years ago. And I know we went through this really thick and we changed things and we added things and what's happened in 2 years that you're wanting to change this?
What changed 2 years ago in the lieutenant promotional process?
Well,
What
we
changes did
changed,
we agreed to?
we changed the entire testing process. Like
In
the
the contract,
percentages, yeah, from the civil service rules and then into the contract. We had the percentages I think on the practical, I don't think there was a written.
The weighted.
You know,
I mean, we gave the ability for the department that didn't have it before to test for outside candidates. So we gave that ability, which it didn't have before.
I guess I just look at that as an unwieldy process for us with the lieutenant promotional entire process when we're looking to promote lieutenants. And it feels like this contract hamstrings the city's ability to seek and promote and hire the best candidates for lieutenant for the organization. And it actually disadvantages BPD officers who want to test for lieutenant versus external applicants. A BPD officer with external supervisory experience would potentially need to resign from the department in order to apply as a lieutenant, which they may qualify to apply as a lieutenant if they're not working here. But if they've been here 5 years and they came from another agency, say they were a lieutenant or a captain at the other agency and they came here to work as an officer, they've now been here 5 years, they're not eligible to apply for a lieutenant position, but they would be if they resign. That disadvantages your union membership in my estimation. So I just think there's some things certainly worth consideration and further change in this process. And I would ask you to go take a look at that and see where there might be some room for negotiation.
So looking at proposal 12 as a whole, if I'm understanding correctly, as you kind of stated before, it is the lieutenant promotional process that is, if you were to put a priority list, the lieutenant promotion process would be at the top of that list. Within that proposal, that's what's being weighted more.
I would say we would need to come back with a priority
Kind of.
proposal if that's where we wanted to go with that, but.
If you're wanting us to look at this, I want to know kind of where the real rub is. Because I know there's
That's
several
fair,
things
yeah.
in here. There's several changes, corporals, the sergeant process, the lieutenant process. If we could find a route, like what's actually really the city's got their eyes on, that'll help us kind of zero in on what we need to look at and consider.
Yeah, that's a fair question. I mean, I will say that they are all things that the city's interested in, of course.
Yeah.
And they're different. They go in different directions, even though they're within the same proposal in the same section. So,
Mhm.
we can talk about that.
Okay,
Come back to you.
appreciate that. Day two. Because we paid holidays. They did too. They did that one.
Maybe a good use of time right now would be to shift to our proposal 8, proposal related to the current firearms training section in our proposal around other types of training. You think that makes sense?
Sure.
We go to,
Just have to find it again, but I don't.
So I can certainly speak to that. So obviously the goal of our membership is to help resolve citizen conflict with better tools and less lethal options and de-escalation training. I can tell you already, we have a more than adequate, less lethal team of operators that are on the street at any given time that respond to calls with less lethal options. That being said, the department can implement as much less lethal training as they see fit without it being locked into the contract. If you believe it's critical, you could schedule or require officers to do 40 hours, 100 hours, as many hours as the department sees fit. You have to look at our outside agencies we train 8 hours a year that's mandated by contract to include an open range. Ada County, Meridian, Tampa, ISP, they all do 40 hours of firearms training per year. So, and our less lethal training is phenomenal. We have a lot of tools. We have a lot of officers trained in less lethal options that are always working the street or on our special operations unit that have these options available. And if they're not on the call, they go to that call. So we don't feel like that is something that needs to be in contract. We're happy with firearms being mandated because that could actually be lessened. Because the new IDAPA rule only says we have to do
8 within 2 years.
8 every 2 years. This requires us doing 8 every year. So we're,
So why is that so important to be in the contract, I guess, is my question. Why is that one so important to be in the contract to do firearms training? But de-escalation and less lethal is fine just being left in policy.
because you can mandate as much as you want.
Yeah.
Under policy.
But isn't that the same for firearms?
No, you could take away from that and go with the minimum of what the state requires. And I think it's best for our membership and our citizens that people are pretty proficient with their firearms.
This proposal, you're just asking for mandatory non-lethal force training. And we're just saying that you can already do that. You already have the right to schedule a training and do whatever you'd like.
Except for firearms. Right.
Firearms, we have, it's in there how much we actually get to be proficient.
And what is the right number for us to be proficient for firearms training? Like, how much would you like to see? Is it perfect where it is? Is it 8 hours a year? Is it 10 or 12, or have you given that any thought?
We'd certainly be open to increasing that number in the contract. If that's what you're asking, we could increase that number. We'd certainly be open to that.
For what purpose, I guess?
I mean, are you trying to make it so we don't have to train so much, or because this is talking about less lethal, so we're confused. Are you focused on how much we shouldn't be doing firearms? Or that we should be, because I mean, I'm just confused by your proposal, because you can set, that's where the confusion is. You can already do this, and then the firearms, if you're looking to take away, that's what, I mean, I'm confused at what you're asking. You don't want us to train as much as we do on firearms? Is that?
That is not the case. I just don't know why that belongs in the contract. Why isn't training set by the department for the needs of the department?
I didn't negotiate that original contract. So I don't know the reasoning at the time. Could probably look that up though. But I think it had to do with the ADAPA rules and trying to have more than that, or I don't know what the rules were at the time, so.
So if we can set the number of hours of training in less lethal and de-escalation, we can do as much as we want, and the union has no objection to that. You have an objection to putting a minimum number of hours into the contract for that?
In addition to firearms,
If we can, as you said, we can put as much training on the department as we decide. 10 hours, 40 hours, 100 hours, whatever, we can set that number. Do you have an objection to putting that into the contract?
that was the question.
That was the question.
Mandating having contractual language for more training.
In addition to firearms.
I'm just,
What's already in there.
I'm just asking if you would have objection to adding these items, less lethal force and de-escalation training, into the contract.
We can look at it. We can look at it, get back to you.
See a problem with that. Especially if it's something that's happening anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
I don't know why we would need to, but yeah.
But that's.
Well, I think it can certainly be, yeah, seen as a as a commitment and a message to the folks that we serve that we value less lethal and de-escalation training and trying to resolve issues and conflicts with people that we come in contact with on a routine basis, without resorting only to firearms as a problem solver, I guess.
Well, and that's
If you want-
not the intent of the contract. Like the union doesn't have it in the contract stating that this is our only problem solver. It's just mandatory training. I think that's a bad characterization.
But if you want to propose something as far as how much mandatory training towards less lethal, we would look at it. Absolutely.
Okay, you just suggested a proposal, but a minute ago you said that you all wanted to talk about it. So where are you on your side?
Well, we're talking about it now, so if you want to send us a proposal, we could take a look
I
at it.
understand we're talking about it now, but you said you wanted to go talk about it. And I'm asking, are you changing from that? Would you like to go talk about it? Because we also just heard that you would entertain a proposal, so I'm trying to understand where you are on your side at this point in time,
In regards to proposal 8 specifically.
in regards to proposal 8, right?
So as this lies right now, there's no need for us to go talk about it because we are not in agreement with as this currently stands. So if you guys are willing to give us kind of some worked language based on what this conversation was, we would be happy to look at that.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah.
In our few minutes we have left before you guys need to break, what items should we focus on now?
Um, let's do this. Let's talk briefly about the proposal, number 2 on major equipment purchase. And I just want to understand the pushback. I know that the proposal, is intended to require, receipts for the purchases. I know there were some questions around what qualifies as major equipment. And that's something that we've been talking about. If we can get to a place where is that the issue, I guess, is my question from the union standpoint. Is that the issue that's holding you back? Is the lack of having a list in terms of, the definition of major equipment purchase, or is there something else that's causing hesitation?
Well, I guess I will say this, I had a union member reach out to me yesterday, and major equipment purchase is, what if it's for my wellness? You know what I mean? We're talking about a major equipment purchase that helped me do my job, whether that be some kind of chair I need at home, a massage chair. I put that $350 towards a massage chair because my back's killing me at the end of the night from wearing all this gear on patrol. I mean, the list could be so encompassing on what you could get a receipt for. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, I think yesterday we said that at the table, but then I had a member reach out to me and said, look, that list could be endless. Because anything could be major equipment that helps me do this job, whether it's, my feet are messed up and I need these boots and they cost this much. Well, that's a bad example. I mean, that's duty gear, but something that's not essentially duty gear that might help me do my job better.
So how would the taxpayers know what the money is going toward without a reimbursement system? So like, for example, the city would be interested if we've got 20 sworn officers buying the same massage chair, we might need to go to risk and safety and say, what can we do in the workplace to reduce whatever symptom this piece of equipment is for? So I both see this as accountability to the taxpayers, but also the city would be interested in trends, particularly in the wellness subject, to determine if another intervention needed to happen, right? We'd rather you not have the need for a massage chair versus buying 30 of them without knowing, for example. So I'm trying to figure out how to be accountable to the taxpayer and also be in a position to recognize the trends. So we're not, the wellness programs are preventing the symptoms that are causing the purchases for major equipment.
And I don't think it's so much us trying to deny a particular item. Like we talked about, I mean, that list could be extensive. That's not our interest. I think it's just an interest in being accountable to, okay, we're handing you this money for a major equipment purchase. And we have no idea what you use that money for groceries, or is it for maybe the requirement for a receipt just ensures that there is accountability. And so that's the purpose behind the proposal. Now, if that's the sticking point that you reject the proposal, is there something we can do to clarify or make that palatable? That
Yeah, there's different facets of this that's clearly being brought up. The list was one of the concerns yesterday, or a perceived list. I think this is a proposal we will probably have to revisit and talk about to find out, just like for you guys, what's the rub on proposal 12 or motion? For us, this is going to be going to our members and seeing what could be perceived rub here, if any at all. This one's going to have to be a conversation that we're going to have in regards to this proposal.
Is there some concern that our members aren't spending that money on major equipment to do their job?
we have no idea.
No, I asked if there was a concern. Do you have a concern that that's occurring?
We have no idea whether it is or it isn't. We just think that there should be some accountability to it. And we think that that is a reasonable request from the taxpayer, from the city. I guess I would say I have no evidence either way as to what people are spending that on.
Right.
So I don't have a concern, but I
You
don't.
don't get a receipt from what I spend my paycheck on. You know, and I'm accountable for my paycheck. They don't get a receipt on that.
Right. But this is something in addition to your paycheck that we give you for the specific purpose of buying major equipment. And that is a big difference between a paycheck. Buy whatever you want. This is something that we have negotiated for officers to put towards major equipment purchases. So.
Yeah, that's something we'll definitely go back and.
Okay.
I think that's fairly good timing then.
So
Take a break and let you all go to your function.
appreciate it.
Thank you for accommodating that.
What time shall we reconvene?
What time does it start at?
What do we, can we talk about what's gonna take place after lunch? What would you guys like to do after lunch?
Well, I think you have some things you're going to talk about. We have some things we're going to talk about. So I think we should come back, both be prepared to have further conversation on those. I think we identified 3 different things. And we'll sign PAs and whatever else you have on your list right now.
And just to clarify those three items, we have, we are going to have proposal 2. And
We're talking about firearms training and we're talking about the promotional article. And you're talking about the major equipment
yeah,
purchase article.
okay,
So those are the 3 that I have on my list.
okay. Appreciate that.
So are you guys gonna, are you gonna come back with a revised to add the stuff, or do you want a counter from us?
On the major equipment purchase?
No, on the firearms one.
Oh, on the firearms. Well, let us have a conversation about it. I don't think I have the answer
Okay,
to that right
Okay.
now.
Okay,
I think we need to talk about it. And come
Fair
back
enough.
to you with some further thoughts.
okay.
Okay? So what does that mean though in terms of our timing?
So the 12:30. Can we do 2?
2 o'clock.
1:45 2? Does that work for?
It's good for me.
Yeah, which time is it?
Let's do 2.
1:45.
Let's do 2.
Okay,
So.
2 o'clock.
Thank you.
thank you.
Should have known we were gonna come Melinda's retirement, because I'll.
Okay, so in regards, when we left, the 3 items were, we are going to revisit proposal 2. And then there's going to be some type of deliberation for the firearms training and the promotional or the whole grievance or promotional process proposal, correct?
Correct. Unless you have something else you want to start with, I did get the TAs printed. I thought we could go ahead and sign
That'd be great.
those. The only one that we're missing right now is the paid holiday one that we just TA'd a little bit ago. And we'll
Okay,
print that one in a moment.
sounds great.
This includes one from yesterday as well.
Yeah, these are
Okay.
all that we've had so far.
All
Except
except for the paid holidays that we just got the counter on from the union. You can take them if you'd like the next break and make sure they are what they
Appreciate it.
purport to be.
Okay, so from the union side, in regards to proposal 2, we've looked at it, we talked about it, just can't, we reject it at this point. We can't accept it.
Could you remind me of the subject? matter?
The proposal 2 is in regards to the major equipment purchases.
Okay, so we talked a little bit more about that and considered some of the information that we heard. And so we've come up with a sort of modified version of our proposal that I'll drop into the
Okay,
drive right now, so that we can talk about that. We get back to the right area here. Should have just uploaded. Yeah, so it's proposal 2 major equipment purchases. And I just noted city 5/23/24.
okay,
So what we did, it was based on our conversation and hearing what some of the concerns were on your side and the difficulty in identifying, a list, because it could be such a broad array of things, how could we possibly define them all? So the way, but as Courtney indicated, there is the accountability component to it. And so the change that we've made, we've just added 4 words, which are of the member's choice. So it would it would read that each member shall receive up to a total of $350 each year of this agreement for the purpose of purchasing major equipment of the member's choice used in the performance of the member's duties, provided member furnishes Boise City with receipts of such purchases within 30 days after they are incurred. This payment shall be made on the second paycheck of November each year. So we wanted to be responsive to the issues that you raised, the concerns that you raised, but also help us fulfill some of the obligations that we have to the taxpayers.
Understood. We'll definitely look at that.
Okay, moving on. Let's go to the promotional process. So discussed that as well, and rather than just explain to you what the priorities are, we actually drafted a proposal that reflects those priorities. We made some modifications in an effort to reach an agreement. Should have it now. Let me tell you just sort of the overview. First and foremost, what we did was we eliminated the proposal to add a corporal as a promotional step. We deleted the proposed language about external supervisory experience with a different agency. But in lieu of that, our proposal is to reduce the period of time that a person must be with the Boise Police Department in order to be eligible to test for sergeant from 4 years to 2 years. And we are still looking to remove the lieutenant promotional process. That is something that is very important to the city and to the department. So we're looking for consideration on that. That's something that we need to see.
Understood.
Then the other thing that I think we can do, well, obviously you have a couple of things to talk about, but I think we could have some further discussion about the SRO role that we have proposals on. That's something that there are some issues there that we are trying to solve. And so maybe Courtney, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. So as you are all probably aware, we negotiate contracts with both the West Data School District and the Boise School District. And in those conversations, we consistently are receiving feedback for the need to adjust the SRO program. And I'm conveying the concerns of the school districts. This is not Courtney Washburn's opinion. I'm a mere vessel of information. And so hopefully I'm characterizing this appropriately, but the school districts both would like to see more interaction with the SROs with students. They believe there are missed opportunities because the SROs are not in the schools, and then particularly on Friday. The schools believe they have an increase of issues on Fridays, so the lack of an SRO being present, I think exacerbates that issue. And they really, I think ideally would like to see this program get to a place, which I believe is the intent of the program. The SROs have more of an opportunity to build proactive relationships with students, and also be a consistent presence within the school. So that 4-10 work week creates a problem for us to solve in terms of the the needs and the goals of the two school districts. So that's the rationale behind that. That those are big generalizations, but that I believe is the true concern of the school district. Particularly as more issues are arising in schools, the consistent presence. And then the need to build proactive relationships and face time with the faculty and the students should be the priority of that program. And the 410s make that difficult.
Okay, understood. We will. Let me make a note. We'll definitely look at that. We'll go back and. Okay. So we have a few things to look at in the interest of productivity and production. Would you guys like a few of our proposals economically? So both sides can work at the same time instead of just one side waiting for the other to come back with a response.
Right, no, I appreciate the thinking behind that. I do think we have to, I really want us to push hard to get through the non-economic items and get those off the table.
Okay.
So let's revisit that, but at some point, but right now, I mean, we've got a couple things to work on, including the training proposal that we didn't get completed that we still owe you. So we'll work on that while you're working on this. So that way we have some things to do.
Fair enough. Okay. Understood.
Thoughts on how long
you want to? We're basically 2:15
you want to take? Yeah.
for looking at these two new proposals as well as revisiting the SRO.
Yeah.
I don't see more than 30-40 minutes.
Yeah, 30.
30 minutes.
How much do you need on the one you have to
Yeah.
visit?
We can do that in probably 15.
Okay.
Okay.
But-
So we'll say 30, and if it's shorter than that, we'll come bang on your door.
Yeah, that sounds good.
2:45.
2:45.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, on the break, we tracked down the other TA from this morning. So I'll pass you that one as well.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. So the union looked at we had a proposal, I believe it was proposal 2, or no, proposal in regards to the SROs. See if I can find it. Back to day 1.
Used to be 17.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
17 amended. Mhm.
17. So spoke about that. We understand that it sounds that there is a concern coming from the school districts for that. To be brief on it, we believe that there are administrative procedures that can occur between the union and the admin in order to help remedy some of these issues that we're seeing. For example, half our unit is already working Monday through Thursday. The other unit is working Tuesday through Friday. I don't know, to speak onto Friday. I don't know if there's a specific need or an issue that was being exacerbated there. But we believe that there are several routes that can be taken administratively that management already has the right to exercise, that could address that issue without us having to mandate a schedule shift or hours worked.
Do you have some things in mind in terms of how that could work?
What, like what types of changes that could happen?
Yeah.
I think we used to have what, an ESRO?
The program's been
Yeah.
cut. I mean, it used to be a lot more officers. So the program's been cut since its formation over my time. So there's definitely things that we can do administratively to add SROs, add juvenile detectives. There's things that can be fixed. There's already things being done, but there's probably more we can do too. Speaking to the
Past the ESRO units, there were as many as 10 elementary school resource officers, and they went from elementary school to elementary school. But that didn't change a whole lot in that the SROs, we have an SRO assigned to every high school and every junior high. But the concerns that are being raised are such that, half the junior highs and high schools in Boise city limits don't have an SRO on Friday. And on Monday, but specifically on Friday seem to be the school's bigger concern. But I'm not sure how we could increase SROs in the school on Friday administratively. Do you have ideas or suggestions besides adding to the unit? Adding bodies?
So just to make sure I understand, so the response is that you think the union believes there are ways that this can be addressed outside of language changes. Specifically, I just heard add more people. Is that right?
That was one of the examples.
Okay, were there others? Did I miss them?
Well, you can adjust the schedules. I mean, you can decide who works on Friday and who works Monday through. So currently it's Monday through Thursday or Tuesday through Friday. Those adjustments can be made. But when you were talking about 10 ESROs, that's a considerable cut from what we have now, which also would accommodate some of the concerns of the school district.
Okay. Not to mention the workload on an SRO who is getting pulled out of school for follow-up on cases, health and welfare checks, that pull them out of schools to do other work as well.
You can add, I mean, you could create juvenile detectives that actually do all that follow-up that are taking the SROs out of the school. So we could brainstorm this forever, but I don't believe that's what we're here to do. But we would be willing to.
But again, just to make sure I'm understanding, so adding juvenile detectives, that's adding people as well, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, so adding people is the proposed solution.
Administratively.
And administrative adjustments that
Yeah.
the chief can make on his own. There's workarounds internally that can take place outside of contract.
Okay. And that was the Monday through Thursday through Friday scheduling that you're talking about?
Tuesday through Friday.
Excuse me, Tuesday through
Yeah,
Friday,
just speaking to the Friday concern.
right?
All the SROs Tuesday through Friday, but then we wouldn't have any on this.
Right. Yeah, I mean, what we're talking about is a shortage, right? In terms of coverage on a given day, and it happens to be Fridays that we're hearing about. You could put everybody
Move
Tuesday
it,
through
it'll be
Friday,
Mondays.
now it's Mondays, right? Okay, so you're not willing to work with us on a solution to that?
I think we've given our reasonings and rationales, but at this point,
Okay, understood.
in regards to the major equipment purchase. And looking at that, the union is going to reject that proposal.
And why is that?
I think we've spoken about this already, and I don't know if continuing to speak about it is going to yield any more production to our current meeting, but
Well, I guess, we were trying to be responsive to the concerns that we heard across the table, which were related to the difficulties developing a list.
Mhm.
And, I understand it's hard. You can't spell out every single possible thing. And I'd
Yep.
like to tell you, let's just all sort of be reasonable and submit something that looks directionally like a major equipment purchase used in the line of duty, and we'll approve it. But I understand that you don't want to place your trust there. That's fine. But, hearing that concern, we gave you a proposal that's directly responsive to it, which is to say, there's no list. You decide what it's going to be. It's not subject to approval. Nobody can tell you no. You turn it in, you get the money. So where's the problem?
I think the problem lies in the union having to defend something that's previously been agreed upon in a contract. And I think we've already tried to express our side and our reasoning for that. And we did have some questions about how that process would look and how that system would look. We appreciate the new proposal, but frankly, it doesn't initially send this proposal to begin with. So I understand that you trying to, resolve concerns, and I appreciate that. But we've given our side of it. And I think that anything really further to discuss on it, on the union side.
Well,
Do you feel like the $350 should be able to be used for anything you want?
It's.
Because if it is, it seems like it's just a wage increase.
It's something that we negotiated previously to have in our contract for major equipment. I don't know why we need to justify what that major equipment is to receive something we already have. We received $350 that was negotiated in the previous contract to cover equipment. Everyone knows the equipment we wear and what we wear. I don't believe it's pertinent to share what kind of things I purchase for that. I don't think the public thinks about it, as Courtney said. They don't need to know all that we buy and purchase for our job. Like, it's part of equipment purchase. I don't know why we now need to justify something that we've previously had.
Well, that's the purpose of negotiations, is we come back with, that's why we have contract
But
negotiations.
you want us to just justify it, just to justify it. I don't even,
We just want you to show that it's equipment being purchased.
but is
Because
that a
otherwise,
problem?
otherwise it's just a wage increase.
But is there a problem? It's not a wage increase. We already have it. So we're not asking for additional wages. It's something you guys want to take away. We've already negotiated it.
Don't want to take it away, don't want to adjust the amount, don't
But
want to
now
do
you want us to
anything.
say what we're doing with our extra uniform allowance through a receipt process
Mhm.
that we don't know nothing about, and how that's gonna work and how it's gonna look and who's gonna lose what receipt and when that receipt's gonna come in and why we need to justify what we're purchasing for uniforms. Is there we had asked the first day, was there a problem as to us, you thinking we weren't using it for uniforms, or our officers sloppy? If that's the case, then you set the policy on what we wear and what we look like.
Well, this isn't uniforms, this is major equipment, and the problem is there is no accountability whatsoever.
But I've yet to hear what the problem is as far as what are we accountable to? I mean, do you have an
It's
actual
major.
issue where someone purchased something you don't believe that was purchased for major equipment?
We have no idea.
But if we provide you a receipt that we purchased something,
Then we would have an idea.
So it's data collection.
It's accountability for the purpose of the money, which is,
But if you don't have any
Basically.
concerns and you haven't had any concerns, then it just seems like it's data collection.
well, if you set a speed limit of 55 miles an hour on the road, and then you never look to see what speed people drive, how would you ever know if the speed limit's appropriate? If there was never anybody that measured speed, why did we set a speed limit? Or why did ACHD set a speed? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
We understand.
you're asking us to justify $350 that we already have in our contract for major equipment. I don't know what, unless there's a problem, we're not dressed appropriate, we're not looking appropriate, you think we're wasting the money. I don't see why you even want this information. Like what it does other than create work for someone. If it's not even detailed, like what is the point?
What is the major equipment? Why was it negotiated?
I wasn't a part of that contract.
Anybody here? Nobody in the union when that was negotiated?
I was in the
It
union.
used to be more than that money, right? That amount's come down. Wasn't it a higher amount? You can achieve, do you remember? Do you remember why that money was negotiated? What was the purpose behind it back in the day?
It started with the body camera. And that was a way, it was started as a one-time where we were getting paid instead of doing you remember the issue with the city can provide new technology. We were resistant to body cameras and this started as a one-time thing to basically pay the officers for wearing body cameras. And then the next contract that got put in at $250. Contract after that, it was increased to $350. And it was reoccurring.
Okay. So the original amount was 250?
The original was. And then the Chief Mulcahy and Allison. We were on part of the negotiations. We weren't there for the final day, like our marathon day, and that one, that's where we increased it to 300.
So it was never about providing major equipment.
Well, I can be blatantly honest and tell you exactly what the city told us, what Chief Mulcahy told us what it was for.
Okay.
And it was so it didn't go towards having a high percentage of raise because it's hard for the city to justify paying an officer this big a raise. So we were having hidden money.
Okay.
And we agreed, okay, it's still a raise.
On that, for the time being. You good?
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe the final or third proposal, the civil service rules promotional process, correct?
Right.
With the dropping of 4 to 2 years and still the removal of the lieutenant promotional process. We're not interested in changing as it is currently, and we're going to have to reject that proposal.
You're gonna, pardon?
We'll be rejecting that proposal.
It's gonna put us in a tough spot. So I just want that to be clear. Anything else?
From those three proposals, no.
All right, I'll pass you our proposal on training. Went back and took another look. How do we solve this? Should be there now. It's listed as proposal 8. City in the title, but it's. So we retain the current language as is, as it relates to firearms training. And added a sentence at the end that states the department also will provide less lethal force and de-escalation training. And the only other proposed change is just to simply strike, because we have multiple trainings in this article section, to strike firearms training and just call the section training.
Understood.
So how about,
I have a question on the training. So it says overtime charge to such activity. I mean, oftentimes just with block training, chief, I mean, we have, because of the way it's scheduled, there's guys on overtime and block training just because of the schedule and conflicts.
This is just referring to the open range.
Look at open range.
Firearms training will be made available on a monthly voluntary basis, providing no overtime is charged to such activity. In other words, people don't get overtime to go to open range.
I don't.
That's all it's looking at. That's the way it's been.
Okay.
so why don't you let you go talk about that proposal? I think we need to talk about the responses that we've just heard related to SRO, major equipment and promotions. Figure out kind of where that leaves us.
Okay.
Okay,
305.
yeah, 3:30 should be plenty.
330. Okay. Yep, so. Union side taking a look at the proposal 8 for training, firearms training.
Yes,
We are agreeable to that and we're willing to do.
okay, thank you.
We do have a quick question in regards to one of the TA sheets. Proposal 4. See, and shift differential.
Yep.
Just looking at the MOU, and I should have given this a closer look. This is my fault. You added the word also is added.
Oh, you mean as opposed to just the sentence as it appears in the MOU?
Yes.
Yeah, well, that was just to make the paragraph fit together, but we can, I don't really care if it says also. So
Okay, well,
we can.
I'm not an attorney. I just want
We
to make
can-
sure it doesn't change anything.
To you, does it, I'll take a look at it. Does it, when you read it, does it change the meaning of the language? If it's.
Yeah.
I don't believe so.
Let me take a look.
So.
It wasn't, that wasn't intentional, so I think it's just because we're talking about the differential and we're talking about the differential some more, and so it's a technical legal term. So if if your preference is to remove it, I don't have any objection to that. It wasn't intended to change
Okay, I don't see meaning change on it. I don't think we need to reprint. I'm happy. to
Plays out.
Okay.
Yeah, or we don't have to. If you prefer, we can line it out and just initial it.
If it doesn't change anything,
I'm just gonna, I'll sign it as is.
Okay.
That was our only question for clarification. Thank you.
So we're good to print fitting proposal A, training. Yeah.
Yeah, last time we're happy to tea it.
So you just send some guys to Phoenix, so
Yeah.
I'll help with that. For the, to Leslie.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, that was the only thing that you all were looking at, is that right?
That is correct.
Is there anything else that you have for us right now?
No.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit more about the major equipment purchases. So the last conversation we had about it was, I guess, enlightening, I'll say. And a concern that we have now is that we are calling it something that it really isn't. And so I want to have a conversation around not changing the fact that the money is paid and it's paid annually, but I want to call it something different because it wasn't originally apparently intended as major equipment purchase. Like I said, that's news to at least us sitting at the table. And so again, this goes to the accountability issue. We'd like to have a conversation around changing that so that it's, and then we didn't get far enough in our caucus to come up with a formal proposal.
Okay.
But I wanted to at least introduce that concept. Again, the $350 paid annually, that's all fine and good, but let's just all be honest about it. And I'm not saying people aren't spending it on major equipment. I'm saying that what we learned was that it was never intended to be major equipment. So.
Yeah, the union's happy to look at any proposal. If you guys come up with whatever, we're happy to look at it.
Well, can we get a little further than that, though? I mean, and maybe I'm just, maybe I'm not asking you to commit to anything, but I mean, conceptually, before we were to put pen to paper on it, I mean, I think it would be better to talk through, and I know this is, you're hearing this in.
Yeah.
So I know you,
I don't know.
I'm not going to hold you to anything, but let's just talk about, can it be an, I don't care, Thanksgiving bonus for all, I don't know. Just so that we characterize it more accurately.
Yeah, I mean, we're open to discuss if we want to change the name or if that's something you want to present, that's fine. I mean, if we really want to get in the nitty gritty, I don't know if that was 6 or 8 contracts ago. Equipment has only gone up in price like everything else, so. I mean, you could call it whatever you want. I mean, it's way more expensive for a pair of pants now than it was 8 years ago. So it's equipment, it's used for equipment. Well, we can change the name. I guess I don't know what you're asking. We're open to whatever.
On our side, like you said, we understand we're hearing this for the first time. I know that we're wanting to brainstorm, we're trying to conceptualize something right now. I don't think that, frankly, just for myself, I don't want to commit to anything. I don't have anything on the top of my head that I'm going to be able to rephrase this as. We're trying to now retitle something to cover the scope of approximately 250 men and women working at the department we're gonna have to talk about it. It's a big umbrella that we're now gonna try and rephrase it as. And I think it would be wise for us to take time to at least talk about what that even would look like.
Or give us a proposal, what you'd rather call it.
Yeah.
I guess just keep in mind, all we're asking, we're not asking to change the amount.
Yeah.
We're not
Right.
asking to
Yeah.
change the time that it's
Totally.
delivered. We just want to change it from major equipment because it's not really major equipment money to whatever we call it, annual bonus.
I'm gonna push back.
Whatever.
I'm gonna push back just a little bit. in the sense of, I understand that when there's a lack of confirmation on your side, then there is that void of unknown. But there is a good chance, and I can't confirm this either, but there are officers who are probably using that to purchase major equipment. So just because it's labeled something and it was originally intended to be, it wasn't as it was originally intended, doesn't mean officers are now using it incorrectly. Does that kind of, am I relaying that?
Yeah,
okay?
but I want to be clear. That's not what we're suggesting.
Okay, it just that.
Yeah, we don't-
No, I
just want to
No,
make
no,
sure
no, we're not
Okay.
suggesting that people, I think Chief's comments earlier were just simply, we don't know.
Yeah,
And then you combine, it has a title, the language is in, it says the money is intended for a certain
Mhm.
purpose.
mhm,
Then we hear that it was originally intended for something different.
understood.
And that's where, from our standpoint, it just doesn't make sense to, just because that's the way it's always been, doesn't mean it's the right way to do it.
Right.
And so let's, like I said, let's just be honest about what we're calling it. Let's come up with something that doesn't suggest it's for one thing. And especially, look, I know you, like you just said, some are using it for major equipment, but I think we can all agree some aren't. So let's not even call it that. Let's just,
Well, I don't even know if we'd make that agreement, because.
well, when you say that some are, that
We can't-
necessarily means some aren't,
I
right?
was saying that from a point of, I didn't have any statistical way to prove it,
Right.
and verify it.
Yeah, no one does.
Nobody does.
That's, I understand. I think that's where we're happy to discuss what that title would look like. I don't know what that would look like.
Right.
Um,
Well, it would
I don't know
look
how
like
open you
something
guys are
that
to have it being
has-
anything.
There's sort of the front end of it and the back end of it. The front end is, here's some money. The back end of it is, here's some money for something.
Mhm.
Why make it for something? Here's some money. I mean, I don't care. The $350 bonus or whatever, right? It doesn't matter. We just
Yeah,
want to
I
move
think- I
away
think this would
from
be- I
this
think this-
expectation that's created in the language. in the contract.
That's fine.
That's all.
And I think we're hearing you. I think we're on the same page here. I think if I was being put in a corner and had to say something, I think it is a good opportunity. Maybe for the administration, they've made it one of their prongs is officer wellness. I mean, I would propose maybe an officer wellness bonus, something of that effect to kind of play into that type from the administrative side. If I had to peg something, I think that would be maybe a vehicle to take this down. If we had to conceptualize something in the spot, so.
Then you can use it for wellness activities. You don't have to.
And I think it gives it that officers are likely using it for that anyway, but it pulls a little bit off that not being as specific into a major equipment. I think emphasizing the officer wellness portion, which is something you guys are trying to do, which we can appreciate from a union side. I think this is maybe a step of good faith, being willing to make a title change for that.
I'm okay with that. Come up with something along those lines. Just probably can't call it retail, but
I mean, like I
On
said, we
TV.
can call it, we could actually call it that.
But it'd be nice if it somehow matched the use of the month, right?
Right, that's all we're
Yeah.
looking for.
I just,
That's all we're looking.
that was my brainstorm
was your
participation. So that's,
Yeah, that was
good work.
so
better than I came up with.
that was my
You
brainstorm.
came up with that, I don't really care.
Yeah, I don't really care bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really care about this.
Show me the money.
Let's put that in.
I'll write it up.
Hey, Chase, taking notes. Call it that.
No, and I hear you. We understand.
All right, well, we'll look at that.
So would you like us to come back with a proposal on a name change for that and then we can discuss it later?
I think it'd be cleaner that way.
Okay, do you want to do that now?
Sure.
That work for you guys? If we go and,
If you guys want to take those few minutes, we'll verify these TAs and sign them. Perfect. We have something to do. So,
okay, let's do that.
okay.
Take us all of 5 or 10 minutes. I would
Right,
guess.
I think.
Yeah, so we'll
It shouldn't
work
take
through
long.
these while that's going on.
So, your brainstorm was as good as we could come up with, so we adopted your proposal to rename it. It's the Officer Wellness Bonus. And, I just dropped that in. So we struck the language stating a purpose for the $350. And just stated that each member shall receive an officer wellness bonus of $350 each year of this agreement. And as before, the payment shall be made on the second paycheck of November each year.
What was it? Yeah.
I didn't
Okay.
add an also, AJ.
No, I wasn't pushing you. I was just. Oh, I remember what it is now. Good.
You're good?
Yeah.
Looks good to me. Union's agreeable to that.
Okay, thank you. That, so we can TA it. We also need to print the training.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so in terms of where things stand right now, I mean, I have some, we have some, real concerns about where we are with respect to a couple of things that I think, we've been clear are priorities for us, and things where we need to make some progress. So what I think we would propose is, that we break for the day. We need to think through where this leaves us right now, particularly as it relates to, I think, what are the remaining two things that we're looking for consideration on, which are SRO and promotions. So we'll come back, I think, prepared to have some further conversation about those in the morning. And I guess I should reiterate that they're important. And that I have, if progress can't be made, I'm just concerned about where we're going from here. So we're going to need to work through that a little bit. So we'll come prepared to discuss it further in the morning. I think we're set for 9.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
All right.
Anything else that you want to visit about today with that?
I think
outline?
that cleared up. We've TA'd all the forms handed. We're just waiting on those 2.
Yeah, did you sign them?
Yes.
Okay.
They've been signed.
Why don't we grab copies of those?
Yes.
And then,
Do you want us to print those 2 real quick and?
So that also
Today,
has
so
ground
it's
rules
out
in
of the
that as
way?
well. Ground rules and ultimate.
okay, we copied that one
Yeah,
already.
okay.
Okay.
Megan, can you
Let-
check with, with those 2? Thank you.
Well, we
Or do you want to do it now?
can just do that. I think let's just do that first thing in the morning.
Okay.
We don't have to sit and wait
Okay.
for that, but
Yeah.
we can
Okay.
make the copies though.
Perfect.
do that. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
That's fine.
That
Okay.
probably didn't make more sense than 8 people sitting around to initial the form.
Fair enough. Outside of that, we don't have anything else, nor is a business today. So-
Okay, sounds good.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.